Margaret Brennan joins us now from the White House. And Margaret, let's begin with the border wall. So did this ultimately become a binary choice for the White House? Put off funding for the wall or watch the government shut down?
Right. Well, President Trump is not giving up on this signature issue. He's just living to fight another day on it, essentially pushing it off till the fall. And what we hear is from our sources on Capitol Hill that this was not only unpopular with Democrats, but also just didn't have the support of some border state Republicans who didn't want to try to allocate such a significant amount of money when there was any way that the government could shut down. They wanted to actually focus more of the funding on things like border security, and that's what President Trump is more likely to get, things that'll help him to hire more border guards and actually boost security around the borders. The physical wall itself is what became the sticking point. So it's just essentially a hill that no congressman wanted to die on in this round.
All right, so let's talk about tax reform and the blueprint that the administration is releasing tomorrow that will cut corporate tax rates by 35% to 15%. But the question is, how is White House going to sell this plan to Republicans? Because if you're taking less taxes in, it means less money, and that's going to have an impact on the deficit.
Right. Well, America has the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Many have complained about this, even the Obama administration, but they couldn't find a way to reduce it and get the kind of offsets that wouldn't cause the kind of significant increase in the deficit. You got to come up with the money from somewhere is the approach. But in this bid to bring jobs back to the U.S., the Trump administration is trying to look at how to get companies to invest here. And that's why this emphasis is so strongly on the corporate tax rate. But right now, I've got to sort of lower expectations here. Even the administration admits this is not a tax proposal or tax reform. This is a blueprint. This is basically President Trump floating another idea, saying this is where I want to go. That's what you're going to get tomorrow. So it's not going to be fully formed, or at least we've been led to believe by the Treasury Secretary that they're not going to have a direct offset there. He's arguing that the resulting economic growth that they think will happen will essentially have a trickle-down effect that'll boost the overall economy and make up for the difference somehow. So in other words, they don't have the rest of the sentence formed yet, and they may not anytime soon. So we'll see, because as I've said, this is a blueprint. There's a lot more work to be done so that the trade deficit isn't, not the trade deficit, that's a different dispute today, so that the deficit isn't added to more significantly.
So many disputes, Margaret. We also saw a tweet from the president this morning about Canada. The president writing on Twitter, Canada has made business for our dairy farmers in Wisconsin and other border states very difficult. We will not stand for this. Watch. What do you make of the president keeping up the attacks on Canada with so many other big issues on his plate?
Well, it's interesting because on that 100-day plan the president crafted for himself when he was on the campaign trail, he had vowed to label China a currency manipulator and consistently railed against what he said were their unfair trade practices. But he's reversed his position on that, and he admitted even just yesterday that it has a lot to do with needing China's help on other issues like North Korea. So he's not going to pick a fight with them right now. Instead, he's focusing on Canada, our neighbors to the north, and one of our most significant trading partners out there. This speaks again to his brand of economic populism, but this does have some rooting in a very real dispute that past presidents have had as well in regard to softwood lumber and, as you just laid out, dairy. These are the kind of basic trade items that are a significant part of our cross-border exchange with Canada. And on the lumber front, you had some big news overnight from the Commerce Department. They are slapping a tariff, actually, basically charging a duty to reciprocate here to punish Canada because of what they say are unfair Canadian subsidies that favor their own industry over American products and disadvantage American forest industry. So you had this announcement from Secretary Ross overnight. He called this a very bad week for Canadian-U.S. relations because they tried to settle this through negotiations and failed. This morning, that tweet from President Trump underscores that the fight extends beyond lumber. It's going to also involve dairy, and we'll see whether there are any kind of tariffs or punishment that the U.S. is going to roll out there, because just last week you heard from the president that he thought there were some unfair new regulations that benefited Canadian dairy farmers over American ones. Of course, the counter to that is the Canadians say, look, you guys just have way too much product. Your Wisconsin and New York farmers aren't managing their own businesses well. It's not our problem. It's not because of us that you have this oversupply of milk product.
All right, Margaret Brennan at the White House. Thank you so much, Margaret.